Okay, when you're ready, we need to squeeze in. Okay, come on in. Love each other. Y'all should at this point. Okay, if y'all would just give me a thumbs up when you're ready, please. Got it, got it. And waiting on one more. You good? Okay. First of all, I want to thank y'all for coming today. This is not a good day for South Carolina. What I will tell you is this is one where a lot of people have come together to fix a situation I wish we never would have had, but we have. South Carolina has come under attack by an international hacker. In that South Carolina Department of Revenue and SLED were notified that a server that warehouses all of our taxpayer information was breached and taxpayer information was stolen. In the last 2 weeks, the state and federal law enforcement, along with the Department of Revenue, have come together and have done everything they need to make sure that those holes have been plugged and that we no longer have any holes that we are aware of at this point. The access point used to access the information, while we now have it protected, we want to make sure that everybody understands that our state will respond with a big, large-scale plan that is somewhat unprecedented to take care of this problem. Just kind of offline, I'm going to let everybody talk, but I have made it very clear to my chief that I want this person slammed against the wall and make sure that this is something that we don't have to deal with. But unfortunately, in this day and time, we do have, it's no longer about just inside hackers. This is now about international hackers and what they can do and the information they have access to. So to give the complete story and where we are at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the chief of SLED, and then he will turn it over to the other parties involved. Chief?
Yeah. I was first notified of the breach on October the 10th by personnel assigned to SLED's Computer Crimes Unit, and I immediately contacted the governor's office and briefed Governor Haley. This investigation was initiated with personnel from Computer Crimes Unit, the Division of State Information Technology, the United States Secret Service, and the Electronic Crimes Task Force, which we began all evaluating the extent of the breach. We've been in constant communication with our federal partners, the governor's office, and the leadership of the Department of Revenue and the Intrusion Response Company. Our investigative focus was obviously, how did the breach or intrusion occur? What is the extent of the breach? Who is responsible for the breach? And how do we best bring that individual who is responsible to justice? And how do we best secure the databases to prevent further breaches? Most importantly, our efforts to conduct this investigation must be done in such a way to mitigate the effect of this data breach would have on our citizens here in South Carolina. Needless to say, this type of investigation is very complex and time-consuming. We now know that there is evidence that the intrusion began as early as August 27, 2012, and it originated from a foreign IP address. Because this is an ongoing and very sensitive investigation, no further information regarding specifics of the investigation will be released at this time. I want to personally thank everyone involved who has been in this effort from the beginning, especially Special Agent in Charge Mike Williams, the United States Secret Service, and his agency. We could not do without his partnership and cooperation. Governor, I also want to thank you for having the confidence in us in law enforcement by allowing us the time that we needed to do our work to reach certain benchmarks in the investigation that we believe will prove beneficial in protecting our citizens and their personal information in the future. This time I'll turn it over to Mike Williams with United States Secret Service.
Again, my name is Mike Williams. I'm the agent in charge of the Secret Service here in South Carolina. I just want to say once again, on October 10th of this year, we received some valuable information that we shared with our law enforcement partners here in South Carolina. I just want to reiterate that this is an ongoing criminal investigation and that we had key benchmarks that we needed to meet in order to move forward within this investigation. And I'd like to thank the chief for working with us and his staff and allowing us to get to a point where we can release this information, come forward with this information in a timely manner. Again, due to the nature and the sensitivity of this information, again, we're going to be very limited as to how much we can comment on a ongoing investigation. Thank you.
I'm Pat Mailey. I'm the State Inspector General. The governor has asked me to take the lead in looking at the state's information security program, and I plan on doing that as soon as we leave this room today, Governor. I'll be getting together a full-time task force of the smartest guys I can find in state government and outside of government, and our first plan of order is to see what we can do immediately to look at all our systems, to triage them if there's any immediate weaknesses, and then look at it holistically for a long-term strategy as to where we are as a state government from an information protection standpoint, and what we can do about it, and try to bring a uniform approach to addressing this issue. I'll be glad to take questions at the end.
Mr. Mailey,
We're going to do questions right at the end. We've got a little bit more that we're going to.
Want to get Mandy?
Yes,
Mandy.
yes, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm Marshall Heilman from Indians. We responded within 24 hours of being notified by the Department of Revenue. Our investigation is ongoing. We've made great strides in the investigation, but we tend to measure investigations in weeks and months, not in hours and days, so we appreciate your patience. Within about 8 days of being involved, the Department of Revenue performed remedial activities at our recommendation. The remedial activities were designed to remove the attacker's known access to the environment. It was designed to deter the attacker from coming back into the environment and to enhance the logging and monitoring infrastructure such that if the attacker were to come back, we would detect them. These types of breaches are not uncommon. They actually happen every day. Most of them do not make the news unless they're very large. Some of the more notorious breaches I think we're all familiar with would be the Google incident, RSA, or Global Payments from earlier this year. Robert Mueller said about a year ago that there are two types of organizations. Those have been hacked and those who are going to be hacked. Thank you.
So with that, I want to tell you that South Carolina has never been a victim of anything, and so we're not going to start now. We are going to have a very strong, as I said, unprecedented approach to make sure that every South Carolina taxpayer is protected. What we have done is we have set up the ability to sign up for credit identity theft protection. There is an 800 number that you can call, and what I would suggest, I even talked with my husband about this morning, anybody that filed a tax return from 1998 or after should call this number. And there will be a live person on the other side of the phone to talk you through the process of making sure that you are under a good credit protection plan so that we are doing everything we can to take care of you. While everyone was not breached, we don't want to take any chances of anybody not having access to this information and not making sure that they are well taken care of. I have also asked for an executive order by the Inspector General that we do a full-scale research of all of our agencies on international cyber attacks or cyber attacks of this kind. I want to make sure that we get full reports on every single agency within my cabinet on what we're doing, on what needs to be done. My directors are very aware that they are to follow everything that he says, do everything that needs to be done, and make sure that all of this is handled in a way that we are not compromised in this way again. I can't thank enough the Secret Service on this, who has just been unbelievably great in the way they've handled this, along with the chief. Director Etter at the Department of Revenue has completely complied and wants to do everything he can to make sure that the taxpayers are here. We also have Consumer Affairs. We're glad that Mandiant's here to come in and be our problem solvers to deal with this, and the Inspector General has and continues to be a great advocate for all of the people, trying to make sure that we continue to secure our issues and take care of the situation. Again, South Carolina has come under attack, but South Carolina is going to fight back in every way possible to make sure that every taxpayer is taken care of. And I will make sure that we do everything we can to not only make sure they're taken care of today, but they are taken care of in the future so that they feel like they are not victims of this process. They actually have a situation and a plan to be able to go forward. And so with that, you can ask questions to anybody that you...
Said that he was not in a position to say where this attack originated from. My
question to you is, do you know where this attack is coming from?
Yes.
Why is it not important at this time to release that to taxpayers?
I think what you need to remember, and what I am very conscious of, is when any law enforcement division tells you this will hurt our situation for this to get out, we need to be conscious of the fact that we need to let them do their job and let them do it in a way. Keep in mind, what were my instructions to them? Slam him to the wall. The only way I can make sure that happens is that I give them the ability to do their job without any sort of confusion and be able to get this person. That's what I want. I want to be able to get this person to make sure he can never do this to anybody or any state again.
Governor, after the last internal breach, you gave very strict instructions. Wholesale, let's study this, let's get ready, let's not let any of this happen. How does this exceed that? What fell short?
Well, first, these are two totally different situations. So what we dealt with in the Health and Human Services situation was that was an internal breach. That was someone actually within the agency that had been part of the problem. Since then, I want Pat to come and step up and really talk to you about what we've done since then and how our agencies responded. This is totally different. This is unprecedented. This is an international attack that did not come from the inside, that was creative in nature and reminds all of us that we are in a different age and time where internally is not just where you have to look, you have to also look externally. But I want Pat to be able to tell you more about what we've done.
Sure. Thank you, Governor. After the incident last spring, the governor asked the Inspector General's office to take a look at her cabinet agency's information security programs. We looked at all 16 agencies, and we did it in a incremental approach. Right now, we have completed 9 reviews. And what we did was, we first looked, when you look at an information security program, you're looking at, what are the requirements, what are the standards? And one of the things that we learned is, and this is one of the reasons I think this is such an issue today, is that there is no overarching standard across the entire spectrum of state government. There are generally accepted policies, of which we came up with 9 criteria to evaluate each of the agencies. We went through the agencies, and by the time we got there in April and May, these agencies had been reviewing their policies, and we found them, as I was quoted in the paper today, there were no gaping holes in the programs, but there were certainly areas to improve. As we went through there, just to give you a quick thumbnail, I would say 2 or 3 of the agencies just far exceeded our standards. 4 or 5 of them were right in the middle, and a couple of them were struggling, but they had plenty of contract help, as well as their own internal review, and they were upgrading their standards to basically find that tipping point of cost-risk balance of protecting information.
The other thing I want you to know is that each of you have gotten a packet, and this is an extensive packet. It is a packet of my executive order. This is also a packet, just so you know, of the last Inspector General's report of each agency, what he found, what they have done since. So you will see by agency how they have made, what they did to fix their problem. So I want to make it very clear that when that happened last time, action was taken, results were given, and action has since been taken by those agencies to do what we needed to. This is a totally different ballgame, and something that I can tell you, you know that things can happen, but this is very unusual in nature. But I think it is very telling that we can't expect this to be unusual anymore. And so I want to do everything we can to make sure we do the same thing we did with the internal side that we now do with all of our agencies on the external side.
Who was the first agency to find out there was a problem in the breach?
I mean, this is just in reference to Department of Revenue.
Which agency first realized there was a problem with security?
The Secret Service initially learned of the breach, and it was brought to the attention of our Electronic Crimes Task Force here in South Carolina with SLED. So we initially learned about it.
When were taxpayers notified, the affected taxpayers?
Today.
So why 2 weeks, you didn't notify any of the affected taxpayers at that point? Were they at risk at that time?
Again, the nature of the investigation, we had certain benchmarks that we needed to meet. And in order to hit those benchmarks, we needed time. So we asked for those time because, again, we are pursuing a very sensitive criminal investigation. So with that request, and we needed to be able to hit those benchmarks in order to have a successful prosecution. Again, this is a criminal case. The ultimate goal is to have a final adjudication for the individuals or individual who was involved in this breach.
Give an example of a
Hold on.
benchmark. You keep saying
Chief, you want to go
benchmarks.
ahead and speak on that as
I
well,
think
please?
the other thing we need to remember as well is when this breach occurred, and it was discovered, and the experts were brought in to determine what this breach entailed. It took a while for them, one, to determine how much data had actually been compromised, and so again, that is the reason for part of it. And as he said again, we have in our investigative efforts, it was important that we have the time to work through our investigation so that we would be able to have evidence that we would need in the future to have a prosecution against someone.
So if a taxpayer is at risk and something has happened in that 2-week period, they have recourse, or are they protected? What happens to those that are still left vulnerable?
The ones obviously that if there's any possible breaches at that point from the standpoint of those that may be vulnerable now, you're talking about from the taxpayers that
The 3 million
in the
or so.
2-week period. Again, I can't speak to that except to tell you that you know, we are somewhat comfortable that has not occurred, and we will continue to be working in that angle. They will obviously, there are laws in place that you know, will make us responsible for seeing that you know, we provide them what services we need to you know, to help secure their information and make them whole.
And to give you just a follow-up information is, this was, because I know exactly what you are asking, and it is something that I have had to work with them on. This is the difference between finding this person and finding how they did it in that time. That was the question is, we needed to find the person, we needed to find out who they did it, and we needed to find out everybody involved. And the only way we could do that was to allow them to go through the processes they have gone through. Trust me, this was as fast, and I think even uncomfortably fast, for us to get them to tell everybody. What I want to make clear is that 800 number is so important. If Michael and I are gonna call that 800 number, everybody across the state call this 800 number. It does not mean that you were all breached, but I would rather you be in front of this and be careful and cautious and know that we will take care of you from credit protection to making sure that you can find out exactly whether you were one of those that was breached and whether you were one of those that we need to go and take care of.
How many total taxpayers are in this group?
The files that were compromised or at least had access to was about 3.6 million, and that was going back as far as 1998. But not all that data was extracted out of the system.
Was the data encrypted that they stole or unencrypted?
The credit card information was encrypted.
And the Social Security numbers were not?
They were not.
Why not?
That was not part of the system at that point.
Will it be in the future?
That's one thing we're looking at currently.
Jim, our source says that during this investigation, while you initially probed, you found that a senior member of your staff, he was allowed to retire because he was taking kickbacks during all of this time. Can you speak to that at all?
I never heard of that issue. He retired on his own. That was prior to this incident. Had nothing to do with what we're looking at now. So,
Governor, is it correct that Mr. Maley had just delivered an assessment to you that indicated that the state's computer systems were essentially operating under proper security procedures?
I think, you know, what he had done was exactly what I told him to do, is how do I make sure that there are no internal breaches ever again? And so what he did was he took his time and went through the agencies. He found out where their faults were. The directors were quickly aware that they needed to fix them. We did that. So like I said, this is a totally different issue. What I want to thank Mr. Maley is that he did everything he was asked to do. The agencies did everything that they were required to do, and the taxpayers were protected from that standpoint.
Governor, when all that was going on, you were pretty hard saying that that you would take individual personnel job action if this happened again. You cited that they're different. I understand how they are. Have you taken any personnel action based on this incident we're talking about?
I mean, I want that man just brutalized.
What about
That's,
South Carolina employees, though?
you know, there were no South Carolina employees. That's the thing, is this was not internal at all. That's the difference, is that was an internal thing where I made them very clear that you go after that person that was inside the agency and you make sure this doesn't happen to any other agency. This was somebody internationally, out of the country, that did this to us. That's what makes this so bad, is because I can't go call him in a room and kick him and kick him.
In this 2
Sorry.
weeks that there was a delay, do you know who did this or have a good idea at this point?
It would be inappropriate for us to comment.
Do you know why
Ms.
it's
Henry.
already in South Carolina?
I don't think these folks that do that, again, no one knows why they target who they target. Whether it's a corporate or a government entity, or, I mean, unfortunately it happens, and why they target a particular institution, there's no one, I don't think, can answer that question.
Was it part of a larger attack, or was South Carolina specifically targeted?
We don't, I don't know the answer to that.
Chief Keel, do you believe that the person who did this had criminal intent with the information, or was it more of a national security intent to use South Carolina?
Well, I mean,
access another-
anybody obviously who does this has some criminal intent, being the fact that, that it is.
Is there motive or something
Who knows? I mean, you look at, in all of these situations, regardless of whether, again, it's corporate or government, is it identity theft, is it fraud, is it intellectual property, what is the purpose? And again, depending on, I guess, what type of database is breached would determine what their purpose is.
Governor, there is a website here that you're directing people to protect my ID.
Yes.
Can you explain the cost situation there, because there is a sort of subscription expense?
I mean, we are going to pay for the fact that we have to give everybody credit protection. We're going to pay for the fact that when you call that 800 number, you can be given a code that goes into that website to make sure of that, and we're going to cover the cost behind that. I don't know that we have an exact number at this point, do we? Yeah, we don't have any.
But there's no out-of-pocket expense for anybody who wants to check their data?
Absolutely not. I mean, this is the responsibility of the state to protect the taxpayers. This is us going above and beyond to make sure that we're not making sure you are okay with one credit agency. Every one of the credit agencies, we have gone above and beyond to make sure that we have the 800 number, we have the protectmyid.com website, but no taxpayer should be victim to this. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We will take care of them and make sure that that they feel protected as they go through this process.
We know there were 3.6 million potential breaches. Do we know how many of those are likely to have been compromised?
At this time, we do not, but we just know that's what the universe was that we were dealing with. So as time goes by, hopefully we'll be able to find out what the magnitude was. I suspect it's something way short of that number at this point.
Governor said you said you've had to move uncomfortably quick on this. Is part of this prompted by the fact that other media was going to release this information
No.
pretty quickly?
And I'll let the chief answer that. No.
No, we conducted our investigation and were able to get the investigation, again, reach the benchmarks that we believe we needed to reach before it was before this was made public, and so that's not the case.
And you reached those initial bench?
We have.
Yes. This was a situation where I just wanted the public to know. But at the same time, I wanted them to be able to do their job and catch it and also find out how it happened, because we could learn from that. No, the press had nothing to do with it. This was just a matter of, I want everybody out there calling that 800 number. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a duty of my office to make sure they're calling the 800 number, and I want them to get in touch with, I want them to feel like they have control over the issue as fast as we can.
This is anybody who has paid tax since 1998?
What I am asking and what I am suggesting to the people of this state is, if you have had a tax return since the year of 1998, being overly cautious, please call this 800 number and do everything you can to make sure that you have protected yourself.
Even if you're no longer a resident of the state?
Anybody that has filed a South Carolina tax return, I would ask to do that. Okay, well, we're going to try and wrap this up, so a couple more questions.
Can you talk a little bit about the outside company you hired, how much you paid, and how you got this company, why they were needed?
Do you want to go ahead and?
Actually, I think, Mike, you want that?
Oh, no, you're the expert.
They say why.
I mean, I guess as to why we were hired, we were one of the firms recommended to the state by the Secret Service. There were multiple firms recommended. We were chosen. If you really want to know much more about Mandiant, you can Google us. We're out there.
How much is the contract to do this?
That's not something I can discuss.
The governor, can you discuss it? I mean, it's public money.
Let me talk about it.
Yeah, no, you're welcome to. I want to make sure I'm giving you right information.
The issue that we have here is the one we don't know the length of the contract, because as they're working forward, we're still looking to make sure there are no other holes in the system, and with their expertise, we think we're going to be comfortable. This may go for another 3 or 4 weeks or 5. Currently, they have 6 employees in Virginia that are monitoring our system as we speak all the time. So to give you a number, that's way out of line at this point. So.
What did you pay so far?
Pardon?
What have we invested so far? I understand that it's.
I don't have that number. We have not received a bill yet, so.
And why you need the outside help? Can you explain a little bit about?
I mean, this is a matter of, you don't go slim on this, you go strong on this. When something like this happens, I mean, this is making sure that we're doing everything that we can. I would hope everybody in this room would appreciate the fact that Secret Service said, this is who we need on this is who we need to get this taken care of, and this is the quickest, fastest way to do that. The number on the cost of that, don't worry, we're going to get you that. We are still, I mean, this really is so early in the process that we have said whatever it takes to do this, we are going to do. This is not going to be inexpensive, but it is going to be something that I can confidently look everybody in the face and say, yes, we did what we were supposed to take care of the people of the state.
Will this
Last question.
investigation all affect next year's tax returns, and will there be some sort of delay in getting revenue into the state and that sort of thing? What happens going forward?
Well, that's the hole's been plugged. We can continue processing as we are, so that's one thing, intent, we want to make sure that this hole is plugged, that would not affect going forward. And that's the other reason why we want Mandiant to continue the process, to make sure that we are clean going into next year's tax season.
Was this people who filed electronically, or people who filed even on paper, but then the information was put in a database that could have been hacked?
It was both, because back early on, we didn't have a lot of electronic filing, so.
And where were these servers that held the information, in the state or someplace outside of South Carolina where this guy got in?
They're held in the Budget Control Board function out of DSET, which is right down the street here. So.
Okay.
Secret Service.
Last question.
What else is in other states? Similar things happening right now? Is this part of a rash of things? Can you draw some kind of?
Well, we have the Electronic Crimes Task Force throughout the country as well as overseas. Again, we are accustomed to dealing with breaches of this nature. Obviously, this is one of the larger ones that we've had to deal with. Yes, it is.
Comparatively, this is one of the largest?
This probably will be one of the largest breaches that we've dealt with. But again, we work very closely with our partners, Mandiant being one of them. But again, in terms of the size and the scope of this breach, it's big, but it's not obviously not the largest that we've been involved with.
Governor, would you call this an act of terrorism?
You know, I'm not going to get into any sort of thing like this. You know, what I will tell you is it's a situation I'm mad about, but it's a situation we're going to take care of. It's a situation where we are going to control the issue, and it's a situation we're going to resolve. And so, you know, you can call it what you want to call it, but I think at the end of the day, what we want the people of South Carolina to know is we're on this, we got it, and we're going to take care of it. Okay, thank you all very much.